Imagine this. You are standing in the dusty streets of a first-century Roman city.
Most likely somewhere near Ephesus.
Right, somewhere near Ephesus. And you are just exhausted.
Yeah.
You've been traveling for weeks on foot, carrying literally nothing but the clothes on your back.
And a message from the Apostle John himself.
Exactly. So you finally arrive at the local house church. You're seeking a meal, maybe a place to wash your feet, and just a bed for the night. So you knock.
But instead of a warm welcome...
The door is literally locked in your face.
Yeah.
The local church leader inside hasn't just refused you entry. He is actively threatening to excommunicate any member of the congregation who even dares to offer you a spare room.
It's intense.
It really is. And, this isn't some historical fiction soap opera. This is the scandalous, dramatic reality behind the absolute shortest book in the New Testament.
It's a completely different vibe from the other letters.
Totally. I mean, if you look at 1 John, the focus is this incredibly high theology.
Right, fellowship with God, light versus darkness.
Yeah, the ultimate cosmic realities. Then you get to 2 John, which is this urgent, almost panicked command to bolt the door against false teachers.
Right, people spreading dangerous, deceptive ideas about Jesus.
But then 3 John just flips the script entirely. The doors are being bolted against the good guys.
Yeah, the crisis here isn't theology breaking down. It's the logistics of love breaking down.
The logistics of love. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to this deep dive. If you are a serious learner, maybe a first-year MDiv student, you're in the right place. Our mission today is to provide a really rigorous, conservative, evangelical survey of 3 John.
Because it forces us to confront this highly localized, intense ecclesiastical crisis.
We want to build an exegetical workflow here that inspires a deeper love for Christ and equips you for effective, practical ministry.
Exactly. We are stripping away the polite, leather-bound veneer of our modern Bibles to look at a dictatorial leader going entirely rogue.
Weaponizing the very concept of hospitality.
Right. He is rejecting apostolic authority. And to understand how we get from the cosmic light of 1 John to this localized turf war in 3 John, we have to ground ourselves in the original Koine Greek text.
And the historical realities of the late first century.
Yeah, we are bypassing the superficial readings today. We have to look at the historical context, the Greco-Roman social structures, and the massive foundational Old Testament intertextuality that runs, like an underground river beneath this incredibly short letter.
So let's start with the physical and cultural world this letter was mailed into. We need the historical and compositional origins, the Sitzim Levin.
The setting in life.
Right. We have this author who identifies himself simply as the elder.
The Greek text says ho presbyteros.
Ho presbyteros. I know critical scholarship debates authorship endlessly on this, but looking at the internal evidence...
And the thematic continuity with the Gospel of John.
Right, and the testimony of early church fathers like Irenaeus, we are confident this is the Apostle John, right?
That is the overwhelming consensus of conservative evangelical scholarship, yes. He's writing from Ephesus.
Okay, so paint a picture of Ephesus for us. When is this happening?
We are looking at a date likely between AD 85 and 95. Try to visualize Ephesus at this moment. This is a massive, bustling metropolis in Asia Minor.
Dominated by the Temple of Artemis.
Exactly. One of the wonders of the ancient world. The city is thick with the imperial cult, the worship of the Roman Emperor Domitian.
So the pressure to conform to pagan civic duties is just suffocating for the early Christians.
It really is. And amidst all this, John is an old man. He is the last living eyewitness to the earthly ministry of Jesus Christ.
Wow.
He carries the unparalleled weight of that unique apostolic authority, but he is geographically distant from the outlying congregations he oversees.
So he's trying to shepherd this decentralized network of house churches in a really hostile Roman environment.
Yes, which introduces us to the incredibly personal nature of this letter.
Right, we have 3 main characters here. There's Gaius, a loyal, likely wealthy layman, who is using his resources to host these traveling missionaries.
And then on the other side of the ring, we have Diotrephes.
The text explicitly says he is a local leader who loves to be first.
We are essentially watching a post-apostolic transition period happen in real time.
Because the original 12, minus John, are gone.
Right. The church is exploding through these grassroots house church networks, and they are trying to figure out how to structure leadership.
And how to support an entire movement of traveling preachers.
But, Ancient travel wasn't like booking a flight on your phone and grabbing a clean hotel room.
Not at all. The inns and way stations along the Roman road system, the
Mhm.
mansions, were notoriously
I've
dangerous.
read they were really bad.
Oh, they were dirty, they were targets for highwaymen, and they frequently doubled as brothels.
Wow. So for a Christian missionary traveling to preach the gospel, relying on public commercial lodging was perilous. Physically and spiritually perilous, yeah. They relied entirely on a massive underground network of local believers opening their homes.
The expansion of the early church basically lived or died on the localized radical hospitality of people like Gaius.
Exactly. But the missionaries John is sending out have an additional constraint. John notes that they absolutely refuse to take money or support from Gentiles.
From the pagans in the cities they visited.
Right.
I want to pause right there because that feels like a massive strategic disadvantage.
It does seem that way to us.
Why would they refuse pagan money? Like, if some wealthy Roman merchant likes what he hears about Jesus and wants to fund their journey, why not take the cash to further the mission?
Because of the cultural mechanics of ancient religious sponsorship. In the ancient world, mystery cults and local temples relied heavily on wealthy worldly patrons to fund their operations.
But it was never free money, was it?
Never. If you took a patron's money, you were publicly signaling that your deity was part of the established civic system.
And you owed that patron public honor.
Yes, which often involves sacrifices to the emperor or the local gods.
Oh, wow. So by refusing pagan patronage, the missionaries maintained the absolute purity and self-sufficiency of the gospel witness.
Precisely. It proved that Jesus was not just another local deity in the pantheon requiring a sponsorship deal.
The gospel is a free gift of the Creator, not a commodity to be purchased by Roman elites.
That's right. So they are entirely dependent on internal Christian support.
Which means Gaius isn't just offering a polite dinner party and a spare bedroom.
No, he is essentially funding the front lines of a theological war.
But this brings up a massive cultural clash, doesn't it? The entire Greco-Roman world operated on patronage.
It was the social glue of the empire.
You do something for me, I do something for you. A wealthy patron helps a client, and the client gives the patron public honor, increasing his social status.
And Christian hospitality completely disrupted that.
Right, because Gaius is giving his wealth to homeless, itinerant preachers who can offer him absolutely zero social capital in return.
It was economically irrational and honestly socially humiliating by Roman standards.
And that brings us directly to the problem of Diotrephes.
Right, this crisis isn't merely a disagreement over the church budget. It is a violent collision between ancient Greco-Roman patronage systems and early Christian ecclesiology.
John uses a fascinating Greek word to describe Diotrephes, doesn't he?
He does. The word is philoprutron. It means loving to be first, or desiring the preeminence.
So Diotrephes is operating like a secular Roman patron.
Exactly. He wants to be the ultimate broker of power in his local house church. He wants all the social capital, the honor, the deference.
Think of this like a modern startup that is rapidly expanding and opening regional branches.
Okay, I like this analogy.
John is the founder. He's at headquarters in Ephesus. He's sending out these regional representatives, the traveling missionaries, to check on the local branches.
To teach the core curriculum and ensure the mission is being upheld.
Right. But the local branch manager, Diotrephes, has gone completely rogue.
He is intercepting the corporate memos.
Yeah. He is literally turning away the regional reps, leaving them out on the street. And worst of all, he is firing, excommunicating any employee who shows loyalty to headquarters.
The startup analogy captures the administrative chaos perfectly, but it also reveals the decentralized vulnerability of the early church.
Because John doesn't have an HR department to deploy.
Right. He can't freeze Diotrephes' corporate credit card.
Wait, hold on. Let's look at the mechanics of this excommunication, because that confuses me.
Okay, what do you mean?
If the church is meeting in houses, and Gaius is wealthy enough to host multiple traveling preachers, he likely has a large house himself.
True.
So how does Diotrephes actually kick Gaius out of the church? Does Diotrephes own the bigger house where the main gathering happens? I mean, how do you excommunicate someone in a living room?
That is the crucial logistical question.
Yeah.
We have to remember that early Christianity in a city like Ephesus or its surrounding towns wasn't just one giant congregation.
It was a network.
Exactly, a network of smaller house churches that formed a single unified body in that city.
I see.
Diotrephes likely hosted the largest gathering, perhaps the primary assembly where the Eucharist was celebrated, or he had positioned himself as the primary node in the communication network.
So when John says Diotrephes is putting people out of the church, He is weaponizing social isolation.
Yes. In the first century, the church functioned much like a trade guild or a surrogate family.
If Diotrephes uses his influence to declare that Gaius is no longer part of the fellowship, he is demanding that the rest of the network shun Gaius.
He is severing Gaius from the social, spiritual, and economic safety net of the Christian community.
That raises the stakes incredibly high for Gaius.
It does. He is risking complete social and spiritual isolation to maintain fidelity to these missionaries.
But I have to push back on the root cause here. Is Diotrephes actually a theological heretic?
That's a great question.
Because in 1 and 2 John, the enemies are explicitly called antichrists, who deny that Jesus came in the flesh.
Right.
Is Diotrephes teaching a false Gnostic Jesus? Or is this purely an administrative, ego-driven power grab?
That is a major interpretive crux. And if we look closely at the Greek text, we do not see John accusing Diotrephes of explicit Christological heresy.
There is no mention of him teaching a false gospel.
None, or denying the incarnation. The text focuses entirely on his conduct, his philoprutimon, his spreading of malicious nonsense, and his refusal to welcome the brothers.
Wow. The terrifying reality of 3 John is that Diotrephes' theology might have been perfectly orthodox on paper.
He might have passed a systematic theology exam with flying colors, but his methodology was entirely anti-Christ.
That is a staggering pastoral reality. The New Testament treats domineering, arrogant leadership with the exact same severity as it treats false doctrine.
Because for John, truth isn't just a doctrinal statement you sign your name to.
It is a reality you embody.
Yes. Diotrephes is functioning out of a spirit of pride and self-preservation. That is fundamentally incompatible with the cruciform nature of the gospel.
You can't preach a crucified Savior while demanding everyone kiss your ring.
Perfectly said. And because John is geographically distant and facing this severe authoritarian blockade, he has to rely entirely on the power of persuasion.
If Diotrephes is physically blocking the doors, John has to bypass him with a strategically devastating piece of correspondence.
He has to write a letter that emboldens Gaius to stay the course.
Isolates Diotrephes.
And provides a theological rationale for the local network to side with apostolic authority.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of the letter itself, the literary and rhetorical analysis. John crafts what is known as a classic Hellenistic personal letter.
We found thousands of these in ancient garbage dumps like Oxyrhynchus in Egypt.
Yeah, they all follow a very standard format. But John takes this mundane secular structure and infuses it with profound pastoral architecture.
He gives us this tale of 3 men.
The structure is a brilliant emotional and logical progression.
It really is. It moves from affirmation to action, then pivots to warning, moves into imitation, and lands on restoration.
Let's break that down. First, verses 1 through 4, he offers a deep, warm affirmation of Gaius.
Then, verses 5 through 8, a specific commendation of his radical hospitality.
Once that positive foundation is laid, John pivots sharply in verses 9 and 10.
Right, to a direct confrontational warning regarding Diotrephes.
In verses 11 and 12, he exhorts Gaius to imitate what is good, pairing this with a glowing apostolic recommendation for a third man, Demetrius.
And finally, verses 13 through 15 conclude with the hope for a physical, face-to-face meeting.
Let's extend that startup analogy from earlier to understand Demetrius.
Let's do it.
If Diotrephes is the rogue branch manager blocking all communication, Demetrius is the external auditor sent directly from the founder.
That's spot on. In the ancient world, you couldn't just drop a letter in a mailbox.
You had to find a trusted traveler going to that specific city.
Demetrius is the letter carrier. He is holding 3 John in his hands when he knocks on Gaius's door.
And John uses verses 11 and 12 to provide an impenetrable apostolic letter of reference for him.
The rhetoric John uses to endorse Demetrius is fascinating. He provides a threefold testimony.
He says Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone. He is well spoken of by the apostles.
And he is well spoken of by the truth itself.
The truth itself. We see this repetitive rhythmic drumbeat of the word truth aletheia throughout these 15 verses.
John anchors this entire administrative conflict to the foundational reality of aletheia.
And he uses these 3 men as living avatars for abstract spiritual concepts.
Yes. Gaius is the embodiment of servanthood and fidelity.
Diotrephes is the avatar of selfishness, pride, and the secular patronage system infecting the church.
And Demetrius is the avatar of integrity.
John forces the local church to look at these 3 men and make a choice. Look at verse 11. Dear friend, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. Anyone who does what is good is from God. Anyone who does what is evil has not seen God.
That is heavy. That is the anvil of Johannine dualism dropping right on Diotrephes' head.
It's just black and white.
It is absolute stark categorization. If you read the Gospel of John or 1 John, there is no neutral territory.
It is light or dark, truth or lie.
Children of God or children of the devil. When John tells Gaius that the one who does evil has not seen God, he is essentially questioning Diotrephes' very salvation.
Wow.
He is saying that a total lack of love and hospitality is evidence of spiritual death.
You cannot claim to see God while violently shutting the door on his messengers.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. John isn't just issuing passive, long-distance theological warnings. He brings the threat of immediate physical accountability.
He says in verse 10, "So if I come, I will call attention to what he is doing, spreading malicious nonsense about us."
John is putting Diotrephes on notice. He is saying, I am not going to let God sort this out eventually in eternity. I am coming to your living room, and we're going to have this out in front of the entire congregation.
The tension here between John's pastoral tenderness and his apostolic severity is striking.
He addresses Gaius 4 times as dear friend.
The Greek is agapetos, meaning beloved. He wraps Gaius in this blanket of validation and warmth.
But he draws an immovable hard line against the toxic leader. He will not allow a domineering shepherd to devour the flock.
That imagery of the domineering shepherd isn't accidental.
Right, and it proves that John's rhetorical strategy isn't just pulled from thin air. He's relying on a shared historical memory.
This brings us to the intertextuality of 3 John, the story behind the story.
When we look at the Old Testament and Greco-Roman context, we realize how deeply subversive this little letter is.
What makes the Johannine epistles unique compared to, say, Paul's letters or the book of Hebrews is that John rarely uses explicit direct quotations from the Hebrew scriptures.
You won't find a formula like, as it is written in the prophet Isaiah in 3 John.
But the text is absolutely saturated with massive covenantal themes. It appropriates the Old Testament conceptually.
Take the phrase, walking in the truth, which John rejoices over in verse 4.
For a Jewish mind or a Gentile believer who grew up hearing the Septuagint read in the synagogue, that phrase triggers immediate associations.
It echoes Psalm 86.11. Teach me your way, Lord, that I may rely on your faithfulness. Give me an undivided heart, that I may fear your name.
The concept of halakha, or walking in Jewish thought, isn't about taking a stroll.
Right, it's about the holistic direction of your ethical and spiritual life.
Proverbs 3 commands the believer to acknowledge the Lord in all their ways.
John is taking this ancient demand for covenant fidelity to Yahweh and applying it directly to loyalty to the apostolic testimony of Jesus.
Furthermore, the central action of the letter, the mandate for radical hospitality, is deeply embedded in the Torah.
Because modern Westerners hear hospitality. We think of the hospitality industry.
Hotels, restaurants, or maybe having friends over and putting out a nice charcuterie board.
Yeah, a polite dinner party. But in the biblical imagination, caring for the stranger is a sacred, life-or-death covenantal duty.
It links directly to the foundational narratives of Israel.
Like Genesis 18. Abraham is sitting by the oaks of Mamre in the heat of the day. 3 mysterious strangers appear.
Abraham doesn't just wave at them.
No, he runs to them. He bows down. He orders the preparation of the finest flour and a choice calf. He serves them himself.
And it turns out he is hosting angels and a theophany of the Lord.
The author of Hebrews explicitly references this when he says, "Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it."
And this narrative is codified into the legal framework of Israel.
Leviticus 19.34 dictates, "The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt."
Deuteronomy 10 echoes this verbatim. So when John commands Gaius to open his home to these traveling, vulnerable missionaries, he isn't just giving good networking advice.
He is tapping into the deepest ethical demands of the Hebrew Bible. To reject the sojourner is to reject the God who rescued Israel from slavery.
Which makes Diotrephes' actions so incredibly chilling.
If Gaius is playing the role of the righteous Abraham, who is Diotrephes playing,
We talked earlier about Diotrephes acting like a Roman patron.
treating the church like a first-century LinkedIn network where you only connect with people who can elevate your status.
Right. But the Old Testament has a specific typology for what Diotrephes is doing, doesn't it?
Yes, he is the terrifying embodiment of the bad shepherds prophesied against in Ezekiel 34.
Ezekiel delivers a devastating oracle against the leaders of Israel.
Woe to you, shepherds of Israel, who only take care of yourselves, Should not shepherds take care of the flock? You eat the curds, clothe yourselves with the wool, and slaughter the choice animals, but you do not take care of the flock.
Diotrephes is feeding his own ego, his own status, and his own desire for preeminence at the direct expense of the vulnerable missionaries and the local believers.
He is slaughtering the flock to make himself a coat.
That's a perfect way to put it. When John tells Gaius to imitate what is good, he is effectively saying, do not be the wicked shepherd of Ezekiel 34. Be the righteous man of Psalm 1.
By participating in this radical hospitality, Gaius isn't just doing a nice thing.
He is actively participating in the redemptive drama of the scriptures.
He is becoming a living extension of God's historic care for the alien and the stranger.
This robust Old Testament framework proves that the logistics of hospitality are inherently theological.
It isn't just about good morals.
It points directly to the theological heartbeat of the letter, which leads us perfectly into the biblical theology of 3 John.
We are looking at truth lived out in love.
Let's pull back and look at the major themes John develops here.
We see the joy of the mentor, the faithful hospitality for mission, the critical discernment of leadership, and a deep desire for true fellowship.
Let's look at verse 4. John writes, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth.
This is the joy of the mentor.
It is a profound pastoral confession. John does not say his greatest joy is seeing the Ephesian church's attendance metrics double.
He doesn't say his joy is watching the church gain political influence in the Roman civic structures.
No, his ultimate surpassing joy is witnessing the second generation of believers, his spiritual children, internalizing the truth and putting it into action under intense pressure.
It creates a unique biblical theology of praxis. If 1 John is the theology of love, 3 John is the logistics of love.
Truth isn't just mental furniture.
It isn't an intellectual assent to a doctrinal statement.
It is a physical reality walked out by unlocking your front door, making a bed, and opening your wallet to further the kingdom.
It is truth in motion.
The focus on physical, tangible reality is everywhere in this letter. Look at the opening prayer John offers for Gaius in verse 2.
Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well.
In some translations it reads, that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers.
Now hold on, because I know people who read that verse and immediately map a modern Western prosperity gospel onto it.
Oh, absolutely.
They argue that John is promising that if your faith is strong enough, God guarantees you physical wealth, perfect health, and circumstantial success. Is John endorsing a first-century prosperity gospel here?
That is a very common assumption, but conservative evangelical scholarship vehemently rejects reading modern materialistic theology back into this ancient text.
Right.
When you look at the thousands of secular papyri letters from this era, wishing someone good health and prosperity was the standard epistolary formula.
It's called the Valetudo, right?
Yes. It's the ancient equivalent of starting an email with, I hope this finds you well.
So it's just polite filler.
It's polite, but John Christianizes it profoundly. The standard he sets for Gaius's physical health is his spiritual vitality. John is saying, Gaius, your soul is doing so incredibly well. Your spiritual life is so robust and faithful in the face of Diotrephes' threats that I pray your physical health and your daily circumstances would match that internal vibrancy.
It is a pastor's holistic prayer for his friend who is likely facing severe stress and circumstantial hardship precisely because of his obedience.
That is a beautiful pastoral touch, and this emphasis on the physical, tangible reality of the Christian life is why Demetrius is such a powerful figure.
John says in verse 12 that the truth itself testifies in Demetrius's favor.
It's as if truth is personified as a character witness stepping up to the stand in a courtroom.
When your life aligns completely with the reality of God's nature, your very existence becomes an undeniable apologetic.
You don't have to argue for your integrity if your track record of lived truth speaks for itself.
So what does this all mean for us? This theology of physical reality culminates in John's closing remarks.
He writes in verses 13 and 14, I have much to write you, but I do not want to do so with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face.
The Greek phrase there is stoma pro stoma.
Literally mouth to mouth.
He does the exact same thing at the end of 2 John. For the apostle, ink and papyrus, which was the absolute highest communication technology of his day, were sufficient for conveying facts.
Issuing warnings and laying out theology.
But they were fundamentally insufficient for true Christian fellowship.
John is establishing a theology of physical presence. The New Testament ecclesiology demands physical embodiment.
The Christian life is incarnational because the God we serve became flesh.
You cannot substitute the physical gathering of the saints with mediated communication.
And if you're listening to this today, you know, perhaps leading a congregation or studying for ministry, you have to grapple with the massive challenge this poses to our era of digital decentralized ministry.
We have live stream services, we have virtual small groups.
We have entire theological debates and pastoral counseling happening via text messages and social media comment sections.
We are highly networked, but we are physically absent.
The medium of technology can convey information, but it struggles to convey incarnation.
You cannot practice biblical hospitality over a screen.
You cannot wash the feet of a weary traveler, serve a meal, or offer a bed digitally.
Furthermore, conflict resolution like the impending showdown with Diotrephes requires the courage, the vulnerability, and the accountability of physical presence.
An email or a letter can be ignored or burned, as Diotrephes likely did with previous correspondence.
Standing stoma pros, stoma forces a reckoning.
It is incredibly convicting. The church is a physical body, not a broadcast.
And all of these themes we've explored, the necessity of walking in truth, the logistical demands of mission, the absolute requirement of embodied presence, they all converge on one central, unspoken, but ever-present reality.
They point to the who behind the what. This brings us to the thematic synthesis, the Christological center of 3 John.
It is easy to miss the Christology of 3 John if you read it quickly, primarily because the names Jesus or Christ do not appear explicitly anywhere in these 15 verses.
If you only look at the surface, it reads like an administrative memo about travel logistics and a problematic middle manager.
But when you apply a rigorous exegetical workflow, you realize that Christ is the central nervous system animating every single word of this text.
The key that unlocks the entire letter is in verse 7. John is speaking about the traveling missionaries, and he writes to Gaius, "It was for the sake of the name that they went out, receiving no help from the pagans.
In the Greek, it's hypergard to onomatos exelthon.
For on behalf of the name they went out."
That phrase, the name, carries the weight of the entire biblical canon.
For a Jewish thinker immersed in the Old Testament, the name, or Hashem, was a reverent, direct substitute for Yahweh himself, the unutterable God of Israel.
Here in the late 1st century, John takes this supreme divine title and applies it unequivocally to Jesus Christ.
The divine presence, the total authority of the Creator God, is perfectly embodied in the Son.
These missionaries aren't walking hundreds of miles and risking their lives for a new philosophy. They are laboring for a person.
It elevates hospitality from a nice gesture to cosmic warfare.
Every single act of hospitality by Gaius, every bowl of stew he served, every copper coin he gave to fund their travel to the next city,
Every time he risked Diotrephes' wrath to unlock his door.
was a direct, tangible participation in Christ's Great Commission.
He wasn't just helping out a few tired guys. He was partnering with the King of Kings.
And the dark converse of that reality is terrifying.
If Gaius' hospitality is an embrace of Christ's mission, then Diotrephes' rejection of the brothers is an implicit, violent rejection of Christ himself.
Diotrephes wants to be first. He seeks the preeminence.
But the Apostle Paul tells us in Colossians 1:18 that Christ is the head of the body, the church, so that in everything he might have the supremacy or the preeminence.
It's a battle of lordships. Diotrephes wants to be the lord of his little house church empire. He wants the honor and the obedience.
It's profound that John doesn't combat Diotrephes' pride with his own apostolic flexing.
John doesn't say, listen, I am the Apostle John. I laid my head on Jesus' chest at the Last Supper. I saw him transfigured on the mountain. Bow to my authority.
John combats the ego of Diotrephes by pointing Gaius entirely to the supremacy of the name.
John essentially says, the only true Lord is the one for whose name these brothers are suffering. Serve him.
This raises an important question for anyone in ministry.
As you analyze the Greek text of the New Testament, the text must also analyze your own heart.
Does your leadership reflect the Diotrephes spirit of self-preservation, control, and personal empire building?
Are you using the local church to serve your own need for validation?
Or does your life reflect the Christ-centered generosity, humility, and risk-taking of Gaius?
Are you using your home, your wealth, and your social standing to serve the name?
That is the dividing line of all Christian ministry. What a staggering journey through 15 short verses.
We started in the dusty, dangerous streets of a Roman metropolis, knocking on a locked door.
We explored the deep cultural collision between the Roman patronage system, which demanded status and reciprocal favors, and Christian hospitality, which demanded sacrificial love for the stranger.
We watch the rhetorical brilliance of John deploy the tale of three men.
using Gaius, Diotrephes, and Demetrius to force the church to choose between servanthood and selfishness.
We trace the roots of that hospitality deep into the Old Testament,
We saw how Gaius embodies the covenantal fidelity of Abraham at Mamre.
while Diotrephes stands in the terrifying shadow of the wicked shepherds of Ezekiel 34.
We explored the biblical theology of praxis, that truth is not merely mental furniture, but a path walked out in the physical world.
And we finally arrived at the undeniable Christological core.
That everything, from the opening of a door to the refusing of pagan money, is done for the absolute supremacy of the name of Jesus.
It is a massive amount of theological and practical weight packed into a single page of text.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thread to pull, a provocative thought to mull over as you continue your studies and your ministry.
We didn't touch much on the very last verse, verse 15.
John ends this intense, dramatic letter by saying, "Peace to you. The friends here send their greetings. Greet the friends there by name."
The Greek phrasing is katsanoma, literally by name.
Think about the modern church landscape. We live in an age where church can so easily become an anonymous consumer experience.
People slip into the back row in the dark during the worship set.
Listen to a polished TED Talk-style sermon and leave before the benediction, never truly known by anyone and never truly knowing anyone else.
3. John demands something infinitely harder and infinitely more beautiful.
It demands that we know each other by name.
It is the ultimate practical antidote to the Diotrephes spirit.
A domineering leader thrives on isolation, fear, and anonymity within the congregation.
It is easy to control a crowd. It is much harder to manipulate a deeply interconnected network of actual friends.
A community that greets one another by name, that shares its resources, that physically shows up for one another.
That is a community where the truth is genuinely walking and where the name of Christ is actually revered.
So as you go forward in your theological studies, as you step into pulpits, lead small groups, or simply seek to be a faithful, radical layperson like Gaius,
How will you ensure your church remains a network of actual friends rather than just a consumer audience?
how will you open the door when the culture, or even toxic leaders within the church, tell you to bolt it?
That's the challenge.
We want to thank you for bringing these sources to the table and joining us for this rigorous survey.
Keep walking in the truth.
Keep studying the Word deeply, and above all, keep serving faithfully, radically, and joyfully for the sake of the name.